can be seated in the presence of the Lord. I want to preach prophetically to you the next 2 weeks from out of the book of Nehemiah. I want to share some things with you that if and when we run past it, I believe we'll miss essentially what the Lord is saying. Of course, the book of Nehemiah, usually, customarily, historically, when someone is preaching or teaching out of the book of Nehemiah, it's concerning the building of the walls of Jerusalem. And that's accurate, that is so. But I want to highlight a few things about Nehemiah and Nehemiah being cupbearer that I want to bring out. But even before we're introduced to Nehemiah as a cupbearer, his character, the kind of person that he is on full display. Before we see his campaign, before we see his excellence of mind, how sharp his mind is, before we see that, we see the display of Nehemiah's character that is on display for the building of the wall and a cupbearer for a particular reason that I want to press in to you and to us, because it's part of the spiritual warfare that is going on behind the scenes with Nehemiah and what I'll call the three stooges who were against Nehemiah. I know we hear about Nadab and Abihu, but there's still one more that I want to share with you. I might not get to it today, but I want to share, firstly, that Nehemiah is the man of God, the prophet of God, who is in the midst of the people of God as the people of God are coming from out of Babylonian exile. And so Nehemiah has a task that, as much as we place emphasis, and rightly so, on the walls of Jerusalem being rebuilt as part of the confidence, a witness of confidence, because walls scripturally oftentimes mean a sense of comfort and security, especially when you're dealing in this ancient time where walls were necessary to keep out intruders or enemies. It's interesting because there is a play on the name of Nehemiah, which means Yahweh comforts. His name means Yahweh comforts, and he has the job to bring a level of comfort to the people of God through a campaign of building walls. Walls to restrict enemies from coming in, but they were walls for people to live within so that they will have a sense of comfort. So as much as this prophet leader is within and is moved by the report that he receives back from brothers of his very company of Judah, he receives back word when he asks, like, what kind of condition are the people in who have come out of bondage or who have escaped captivity? And interestingly, the report is that these people are broken and in a shameful way. So right here, the report is, and Nehemiah's job is not only to build the walls for the people, but coupled with that, Nehemiah's job is also to build people. Let me say it again. Nehemiah's job isn't just to build walls, because he can easily come into, and we see in the text that God shows him favor, which the king, which was a common move in that ancient world, that kings would often allow for captive people to go back to their native land and restore their village or city or town. So that is not something unusual. But the issue is, can Nehemiah be persuasive and gracious and empathetic and concerning enough to the level that the people who have come out of captivity towards people who have come out of bondage, to not only build up a symbol of comfort, but is he skilled enough? Does he have the heart enough, not only for the walls, but also for the people that live within the confines of those walls? Does Nehemiah have the capacity to not only build walls, structures, and systems, but does he have the capacity to build people? God help me. He is a Old Testament pastor and shepherd. I think that oftentimes in this day and time, the popular gift is not the pastor. Because everybody wants to prophesy. Everybody has a word. But not so many people have a heart to stay and build the superstructure of walls while building the people who are going to live in the walls. Okay, let me do it this way. It's great that we can build elaborate buildings and have all of the systems working within that structure. But if the people that are coming to that structure are not convinced that God is on their side, that God is with them to comfort them and to keep them, then the purpose for building the building or the walls falls by the wayside eventually. The building of the structure, the novelty of all of that will eventually wear off. When the concerns of the people who are in the place, if the pastor, prophet, leader doesn't have the heart for the people, then the people don't want to come to the place that's been built with all of the lights and the glit and the glamour and everything that gets people excited, but the people don't walk away empowered. Are you hearing me out what I'm trying to tell you? That it's one thing, and y'all know, and I'm not here to backhand at any time our praise, the ecstatic manifestation of the Spirit through praise and through worship and through clapping our hands and lifting our voice that is culturally appropriate to who we are. We're people who like to express ourselves, and the Spirit works within that framework. But if we leave from this place after building the structures and the systems and having all of the things that get people excited to draw them into the place, but they never leave empowered or built up within themselves, it would then come to the place like the people who were leaving Exodus, who were leaving Egypt, who said to Moses while they were in the wilderness, because the people needed to be built to understand and to appreciate the freedom that they were walking in, but a people who is broken in their minds for centuries, with centuries of trauma in their blood, have to be built up to appreciate freedom. You hear me what I'm saying here? I'm trying to help you through here. That Nehemiah's job wasn't just laid to build the walls, he had to build people. In this day and time, the pastor isn't all that popular. Not that we don't have pastors who carry people in their hearts, but the people who are getting the most clicks, the people who are at the top of popularity, aren't the ones really who have pastors' hearts. Because, see here, okay, let me bring it this point. I shared this with my wife this morning. I said, many people see me preach, but very people experience me as pastor. Because the preaching part is this part where I'm preaching and you see me at what you would hope to be my best, or at least close to it. That's the preaching part that most people enjoy and gravitate towards. But very few appreciate the pastor, because the pastor deals and confronts and builds up the people when I put the mic down. When there's no word, if you will, that will get you to dance and shout, but it could be a word of correction. It could be a word that challenges everything that you believed in your spirit, and you are resilient in your belief and don't want to change. Because if I divorce my belief system that I've had all of these years, I also walk away from the tribe that I'm committed to. And I'll rather be committed to, it's called cognitive dissonance. I'll be committed to the tribe, but I won't be committed to the truth. But if I'm committed to the truth, then I'll have to walk away from the tribe. Are you hearing me at what I'm trying? So this is where Nehemiah has to lay the axe to the root, because he has to deal with and contend with the people who have been in bondage, who are in, the text says in chapter 1 that they've escaped captivity, but they're in great trouble and shame. And the gates of Jerusalem have been destroyed by fire. There is easy access to them. A shamed people are a people who are easy to subdue, because it's not merely a physical subjugation, it's a mental and a spiritual subjugation. That you can walk around with no chains or shackles on your hands and on your feet. But if your mind has been broken because of the years of trauma and bondage, you're just walking in bondage. No outward expression of being in bondage, but your mind is broken, and your mind can't forget where you come from. And then now, when you come home, you find that your home has been pillaged to the place where you have nowhere to live and nothing to appreciate. Nehemiah here does not give a word of prophecy at the report, because he understands that this Babylonian captivity has done a job on the people of God. They've already heard the prophecies that eventually this season is going to turn and God is going to show himself strong. Nehemiah is a builder of systems, where he begins to tear down the systems of their minds. That yes, you've been in bondage, but you're not in bondage anymore. So the victim mentality will not work in this next season of your life. I'm trying to preach to you here. That the victim mentality will not work if we're going to build walls. If we're going to get what we once had back to the place of its former glory into a new glory, then I've got to change my mind, not only about my proximity, but my profession, and my mindset is going to have to change. Nudge somebody and tell them you're going to have to change. Where once things laid down and had become comfortable, we have to move those bricks to use them to build us a place where we can worship like we used to. When you begin to move, I was in my backyard, and the previous owners, they had a bunch of bricks on the very far end behind our shed. They had popped these massive bricks, and I wasn't going to use them, so I gave the bricks away. But what I found when I moved the bricks was very interesting. Because under the bricks, before you get to the wood or before you get to the dirt, there was some wood there that was holding up the bricks. But when you move the bricks, what was eating away at the wood, you couldn't see because the bricks were on top of the wood. And so the worms, the termites, were eating away at what should be a strong structure. That is, the bricks have the wherewithal to hold things up. But the wood was being devoured, and it was being devoured at an unseen space. Some things in our lives, brothers and sisters, will put bricks, but never go to inspect the wood to make sure there's no termites or things eating away at what should be strong, but is being devoured bite by bite. So Nehemiah is here to build up people. Somebody say, build up people. I want you to know that is spiritual warfare all within itself. Building up people to hopefully get in and let folks to know that your circumstance is bad. What's going on around you, what you can see is bad, but it can change. I wish I had a better house that'll holler back at me. It's bad all around me. My context is bad, but it can change. Nudge somebody and tell them it can change. Yes, nudge somebody who wants to really talk to you. I don't care if they need a mint. You can pass them a Tic Tac a little later on, but just let them know it can change. Now, here's the thing. God didn't change it. Nehemiah was stirred in his spirit at a negative report, and he begins to move by the burden that he feels in his spirit. Nehemiah, brothers and sisters, is a reforming prophet and leader. His movement to rebuild the walls is the result of a negative report. His movement to rebuild people was a result of a negative report. What's my point? My point here is that not all negative reports result in inactivity. Let me say it again. Not all negative reports results in inactivity. The negative report that Nehemiah receives it moved him in his spirit, and it impacted his soul. His spirit longed to rebuild the walls. His soul was heavy with the burden of the report, and his countenance, we find out a little later on, is sad because of this negative report. But one thing I want to highlight for you in verse number 4 is that of what happens to Nehemiah when he receives the negative report. Hopefully just a few folks or all of us will get this. That when he heard the words, the text says that he sat down and wept. And the text says that he mourned. That is, there was a deep wounding in his spirit that caused him to mourn for days. Then the text says he was fasting and praying before the God of heaven. We see multiple times over the course of the book of Nehemiah, and it's evident that Nehemiah is a man of prayer. I know prayer isn't popular, but prayer sure is powerful. that before Nehemiah went to go and begin to move in his plans, he prayed. Let me say it again. Before Nehemiah went to move in plans to build the walls, he stopped and sat down and prayed. Nudge somebody and tell them, stop and pray first. Because you going to stop and pray first doesn't mean that the walls won't get built. You stopping and praying doesn't mean you're wasting time. What you are doing is getting focused. Nudge somebody and tell them, I'm just getting focused. There's no rush. It's going to happen. But I want to be focused. I want to move right. I want to speak right. As a matter of fact, I might not talk too much because it's important and significant for me to pray to God and hear from Him first. You stopping to pray doesn't mean that you won't experience God's prosperity and blessing and favor. In fact, you moving to pray means that you understand God's prosperity, favor, and mercy. It means you understand that His ways are not our ways, and His thoughts are not our thoughts. As high as the heavens are above the earth, that's how high His thoughts are. What I want to do is get nasa or NASA. It means to lift or to go up. What I want to do is pray so that I be lifted into the realm of God thought. I'm preaching this better than y'all hollering back here. I want to be lifted into the place of God thought. If I stay in my own thoughts, I'm going to abnegate and give up the plans to build the wall. I'm going to abnegate, I'm going to give up, I'm going to lose my right to build people. As a pastor leader, as a prophet, he does not expend his energy first at building the walls. He first expends his energy at building himself up so that he can better the people so that the walls can be built. He's a man of prayer. This is in chapter 1, one of at least 9 times in the book of Nehemiah where we see that Nehemiah moves to pray. Somebody say, he moves to pray. The walls and the condition of the people to Nehemiah were a reflection of God not being in the midst of or concerned for His people. So what does Nehemiah do? He begins to pray to God to let Him to know, God, we're aware of the sin that's in the midst of us. We have forsaken your commandments and your law. We've walked away from worshiping you. We have actually offended you. And just as you commanded Moses in the beginning that you would scatter us if we did not obey your law and your word, now God, I want you to know, standing as the mediator, standing in the gap for the people who can't see the gaps for themselves because the people are in a place of trouble and shame. There's at least one man who stands in the gap to pray to God. Again, might I just kind of put my weight on it just a little bit more. This is the reason why the pastor gift in the church today isn't so popular, because it is a role and a function of not merely building walls, but building people. Somebody say building people. The first thing we get is that Nehemiah is a man who hears accurately, because before we even see him in Nehemiah chapter 1, he's already a man of prayer. Because any man that's going to fast and pray has already fasted and prayed. Let me say it again. Any man that's going to fast and pray at this kind of response is a man who knows how to respond to bad news. I know you might want to get onto the bandwagon of, don't nobody bring me no bad news. What's that movie? The Wiz, yeah. And that was his thing. Don't nobody bring me no bad news. Well, here's the heart of the pastor leader. Bring me bad news, I know how to respond to the bad news. Y'all hearing me? Firstly, we see that he is a man who is steeped in prayer. After he asked for God to turn his wrath through prayer and grant him mercy in the sight of his ruler. See how Nehemiah is moving. God, if this thing is going to be done, then I know that there are some walls before we build the walls. There are some walls that you're going to have to bring down. And he understands that though he is a man in authority, he is a man who is under authority. He and the people of Israel are subject to another ruler. But there is a man. The text says, at the time, I was a cupbearer to the king. No, if you will totally and completely miss this if you think all that Nehemiah is doing is serving wine, you're missing the point. Next to the king, Nehemiah is the next highest ranking and trusted individual in the realm of the kingdom. And he has the attention of the king. Not merely as a cupbearer, but what this says is that you have the kind of character and integrity that you can be trusted with the life of the king and not steal what belongs to the king. You're missing my point. Let me give it to you like the Lord gave it to me. Responsible he is for the wine, that is the drinking of the king, to preserve the life of the king. That is, this is one of the ways in which you kill a ruler in his time, is that you get the cupbearer to poison the wine, to stop the rulership or to stop the bloodline, if you will, of the ruler. You just poison him. Now, it's hard to track down who poisoned the king, but if you know this, if the king dies, the next person to die is the cupbearer, because you're the one with the access to the drink for the king. He is a man of tremendous integrity. He can be trusted. Here's the other thing. He's not from the kingdom of the king. He is not of the bloodline of the king. He is a man from another kingdom that can be trusted with the goods of another king. Can you be, I guess the point is, can you be trusted in whatever realm you're in? To preserve the life of the king, but he never drinks what belongs to the king with the intent to be drunk with the wine. Had he been a drunken cupbearer, the passion to rebuild the walls would have been consumed by the lack of sharpness for focus because of the inebriated state of the prophet leader. Here's the point. Serve the wine that pleases the king, but don't consume it for your own pleasure. God help me. Serve the king the wine, but remain my prophet, so that when I speak, you understand in clarity and in specificity what I want you to do. Don't subjugate yourself to the dainties and the spoils of another kingdom, because there is an assignment on your life. And if you consume the wine of another kingdom, it will cause you to become dull in my kingdom. I'm trying, Brother Jordan. I don't know if I'm getting the point over to you. He's the cupbearer for the king. The cup doesn't belong to him, neither does the wine. Okay, I guess here's my lesson. That as much as Nehemiah was God's man, Nehemiah knew he wasn't the king, and he definitely knew he was not Yahweh.
In other words, Nehemiah knew his role. And how many folks have gained access into the place where the king is, but have no word and no confidence of the king that what you're going to do and what you're doing is going to be pleasing to God and not hurt their kingdom? The king didn't care nothing about no walls of Jerusalem. What his concern was, let me make a decision that will make Nehemiah happy. Because the text says that when he walks into the presence of the king now, who legally has a right to kill Nehemiah for coming into his presence with a sad countenance, knew what Nehemiah was all about. That this thing that's bothering you is not usual. This is an unusual burden. The fact that you would come into my presence knowing I can cut your head off and put it on a stake for you coming into my presence sadly. What's your problem and what's on your heart? I think this is why David says that we enter into the Lord's gates with thanksgiving and enter into his courts with praise. Y'all a little cold in here. Do we need to kick the heat up? I see folks covering up. That ought not be. Let's see what the issue is. Now, we enter into his gates with thanksgiving. Why? Because the kind of king that we serve is a kind of king that even if on the inside I'm a little troubled, it ought not show on your face. Because I'm always a good king. We're talking about our Lord. He's always a good king. He's always a gracious king. Even when we don't understand how he's moving in our lives, he's still a great king. Somebody say, the Lord is great. Your sad countenance ought to change when you come into the presence of the king. You're the one holding the cup. Can we do it that way? That your praise and worship is the cup and the wine to offer the Lord. Let me be done here. Let me be done at this point. That watch what Nehemiah does. He begins to give the king the appropriate respect. Long live the king forever. He says, but you know, it's kind of hard for me, King Artaxerxes, for me to be happy when I know what's transpiring in the condition of my hometown. It's kind of hard for me to do my job with joy. It's not that I don't respect you, King. It's not that I don't love you, King. It's obvious I've been doing this for a while and no harm has come to you or to your kingdom at my hand. I've always served you a righteous cup of wine. I've always done the right thing in your presence. But today, King, is just one of those days that based on the report that I received, it's kind of hard for me to move like I need to move, especially when praise is giving me a negative report. Because the text is that it's some men of Judah. Wait, there's a conflict. Praise ought to always have a good report. But the negative report didn't mean that Judah didn't have a praise. Praise gives you accuracy. The report is, how am I going to praise at this report? Y'all, let me do it again. Praise gives you accuracy. They came and gave Nehemiah a report. Now Nehemiah says, this is how I got to move. Because praise didn't mean for Nehemiah to stop praising, but now I got to strategize right along with praise. Hence the spiritual warfare. I'm trying, I don't know if I'm getting this to you. I don't know. I'm trying. I'm doing the best I can. The sadness of his heart was exhibited on his face. The king says, man, what's wrong with you? Let me go and do this work. It's not that I don't want to serve you, but there is a higher calling. It's not that I don't want to do what I need to do in your palace. There is a higher work for me to do. See, you can work on your job and still glorify God. do what you need to do on your job and still be faithful to the Lord. Y'all don't want to talk to me now? Y'all don't want to talk to me? I don't care where you work. You can still do your job and be a person of integrity. Because if you be a person of integrity in a kingdom and in a realm that does not honor God, they will honor God just because of you. Watch what the king says. He said, man, how long you gonna be gone? How long are you gonna be gone? Nehemiah was such an intricate part of the kingdom that the king lamented the fact that Nehemiah was getting ready to leave. Yeah, I'm sure he had his own personal reasons why, like, oh Lord, now I gotta vet and find a whole new cupbearer that's not Nehemiah, and hope that by the time Nehemiah returns, I still be living. So there is a personal side to it, but look at what Artaxerxes recognizes in Nehemiah, that the passion of Nehemiah's heart is not set over against to disrespect Artaxerxes, but it is to do exactly what his name means. I'm done on this point. I gave you in the beginning. Nehemiah's name means what? Yahweh comforts. You don't think Artaxerxes knows that? He said, now I don't serve Yahweh, but I'll let you do what your name says you're to do. I don't serve the God that you serve, but I'll let you go and serve your God. I don't serve that Yahweh. I don't know nothing about that. As a matter of fact, Artaxerxes thought of himself as a God. But he was wise enough to know, I'll let you go and build God's city. Just maybe God will be gracious and watch my city be built. I don't think you understand me or what I'm trying to tell you. Folks will show you favor for the God that you serve. They don't have to serve the God that you serve, but they'll show you favor for the God that you serve. I don't like that Jesus talk. I don't want to hear that Jesus talk. But since you cool with him and I see the prosperity and the blessing of God on you, our office is always peaceful when you're here. But when you're not here, it seems like hell is breaking. Has anybody ever? So Artaxerxes said, man, how long you gonna be gone? Because the kingdom might get tore up if you don't come back. I got to be done. The king says, essentially, this is Crocker Commentary, page 524. What do you need so that you can do what's in your heart? What do you need so you can do what's in your heart? In other words, how can I help turn that frown back into a smile? Isn't this the kind of love that we should have for one another? What can I do for you to turn that frown back into a smile? How can I serve you? What can I do for you to help you turn that frown back into that smile? I need to see all 32 or whatever you got left in there. That's what I need. If they're yours or you bought them, they still yours. Those are your chompers. He said, I just need papers just to let folks know that while I'm passing through, I'm going because the king gave me access. I'm going where I'm going because the king gave me access. That's my last point. I just want to leave to you. You're going where you're going because the king gave you access. Oh. You're going where you're going because the king gave you access. One more time for the folks in the back. I hope you're going to catch it. You're going where you're going because the king, TMA Jenkins, you're going where you're going because the king gave you access. And the papers that you have in your hands
is proof that the king got my back. That the King of Kings got your back. The papers are the legal documents for every demon that tries to stop you. Just flash your papers. If you're not standing, just stand. Will you honor the Lord by clapping your hands and say yes to the Lord? Next week we'll deal in the subject of change, and in just the things that arose from out of the change that came out of a man who was a man of prayer, and a man that was focused, and a man that had papers, and the man that had the king behind him still had those that wanted to stop him. You can have all of